This whole thing is about getting the most down with the least squawking and plucking a goose. And I think a lot of folks see, in legislatures and states, see this as an opportunity to say, oh, well, we didn't raise taxes, we just started collecting more taxes. But I kind of agree with Mr. Marino, who said if this tax wasn't being collected before and is being collected now, it sure smells like a new tax to those of us who pay it. And I've sat here, I'm familiar with the Marketplace Fairness Act, not a big fan of that. I've heard numerous different proposals here, and it's like we can just punch holes in each one of them. I still haven't particularly heard one that I like. I mean, I understand the problem, and we're talking about the administrative burdens of collecting it. And the current system is kind of fair with that respect. Mr. Michel, your mall folks, if there's a fire, they're going to call the fire department, and in exchange for the administrative burden of collecting that local sales tax, the fire department's going to respond. The police are going to come out when there's a shoplifter or for crowd control on Black Friday. The internet retailer aren't getting the advantages of any of those services. So, I mean, yours kind of falls apart on that one to some degree.
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, as I said before, I want to make 2 points, one a constitutional one, then one practical one. On the practical side, the Congress
quickly, because I got a lot to do.
Congress did this in 2000. It has worked with regard to alcohol, and it could work under my proposal.
All right.
But your question raises an interesting constitutional point. Why we're here.
I'm interested in the Constitution, but I want to get to the nitty-gritty on these. We can talk a little bit about the Constitution. On Mr. Moylan, your proposal says you should prohibit, I think in the answer to some of your questions, you should prohibit a business from relocating to a tax jurisdiction. I think you said, or lower tax jurisdiction. I mean, what about the guy, somebody who's selling something on Etsy and their spouse, in Texas, and their spouse gets transferred to Oregon? I mean, are you going to then shut that business down? I mean, yours falls apart there.
No, certainly not. I didn't mean to suggest that we should prohibit businesses from moving. What I meant to suggest is that we should prohibit businesses from setting up fake operations in states like New Hampshire to avoid collection.
And we've all pretty much agreed we can't tax on a foreign jurisdiction. I ordered a computer for my wife for Christmas. I bought her what I wanted, I confess, but it shipped from Juarez, Mexico. What's to stop a retailer from setting up just across the border, shipping in? We've got some great border crossings in Texas. Doesn't cost a whole lot more to ship. You completely avoid taxes that way. I mean, you could fall apart that way just on the international end. And Mr. Crosby, you talk a lot about building this database with all these safe, Mr. Sutton, I'm sorry, Mr. Sutton, these databases with all these safe harbor provisions in them. To me, that's a massive massive creation of federal regulation. And then if we have the government build that reporting database, we see how good the government is with databases with healthcare.gov. I mean, we can't compute our way out of a paper bag here in Washington. And then, go ahead.
I don't disagree that there's definitely complications, and I got invited to this hearing about 10 days ago and put that together in the last 10 days.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I understand it's been done before, but what I've been very much an opponent against the Marketplace Fairness Act for a long time, and something big picture-wise, I don't think anybody in here has grasped, because I've heard a bunch of people talk about this isn't a new tax. Well, if a business is selling remotely to Florida right now, the business doesn't have physical presence, it's not subject to sales tax, and it's not subject to use tax, because both of those taxes are based on things that happen in Florida. If this law passes, all of a sudden that business is going to be subject to the sales tax in that other state, in its home in Florida. So it's going to have an incident of tax where it did not have before, and if it doesn't pass it on to the consumer, it's liable for it. If it makes a mistake in calculation, it's liable.
Again, I also remain concerned about the database of stuff going and what's going to be taxed on. I mean, in Texas, potato chips are taxable if you buy them at, or not taxable if you buy them at a grocery store, but are taxable if you buy them in a vending machine. Absolutely. Is the internet more like a vending machine, or is it more like a grocery store?
The complications on the software side are unbelievable, and in the Marketplace Fairness Act, and it's in my idea. It's on both sides. But I have talked to two different software providers, one of them who's in this room right now, and a huge proponent of the Marketplace Fairness Act, who says their databases, their software already sanitizes private information out of when it comes out of the vendor. They already do it.
Time of the gentleman has
I
expired.
see I'm expired, and I appreciate it. And we didn't even get into the privacy concerns or the
Time of the
taxation.
gentleman has
of the service.
expired, and the chair recognizes the gentleman from